Next up, it's time to look at bushes. Okay, so we'll do sort of like bushes and trees and what makes them really fit into the landscape pretty well. So with bushes, what you need to be careful of is when you're searching for bushes. I mean, grasses is one thing. Like there are a lot of Shutterstock things for grasses, but bushes and trees are like huge business for them. So it's really tough to find ones that are free and ones that are particularly PNGs. So when you click on an image like this and it shows up as like with a checker background, generally that means it's a PNG. If it's like a protected file format, when you copy and paste it in, it will have a white background. But you all know how to get rid of white backgrounds now anyway. But what you're going to see a lot of is stuff like this, where it has, I don't know if you can see it up there on screen very well, but it actually says Shutterstock over top of it. That one looks like it's kind of free. But they have these watermarks, these little stamps that go across, and that's generally not good to work with. It's technically illegal. But so this is an image I think we can take. So I'll copy that image. I'll go into Photoshop and I'll paste it in. It came in with a black background, but that's okay. So what we want to do with this is the same thing we did with the other stuff, right? We're going to do our selecting of a color range. But like I did before, I want to make sure that it all fits on the page before I do that. So let's just pull it in a little bit like that. And then grab your eyedropper, then go to Select, Color Range. You can actually set, oh, it's not exactly... Oh, you know what? I got to turn some stuff off. Otherwise, it's going to get screwed up. There we go. Select, color range. There we go. That's better. There. Okay, so I pushed it down because I want to try and retain some of the thickness of the material here while getting rid of all of the background there. So that should be fine. I'll hit delete. There's my bush. All right. So these get a little bit tricky sometimes because some of them are actually photographed or modeled in perspective. For instance, like this one right here is like a box bush that you're kind of looking up at in a way. But it can be, you know, messed around with and squeezed and crunched to make it look right. This one is being taken sort of directly horizontally, like you're looking at it from the side. This one you're sort of standing a little bit above it. But these ones you're actually standing directly above it. So you need to be careful of those because they're not going to be easily modified, particularly stuff like that. So that's why I chose this one. You're sort of looking at it from the side. So anyway, free transform that thing, squeeze it down. You can put it in place. That's gigantic. So it's going to turn out to be pretty small. What I like to do with these is overlay them on the sidewalk a little bit, just like what I did with the grasses. But sometimes they need to be skewed as well, right? Like this one happened to be sort of facing directly at me, but my perspective is a little off. So I'll, on occasion, sort of squeeze the edge like that a little bit. So that feels a little bit more natural to me. So something like that would do just fine. But when you have sort of multiple plants and stuff like that, there are a couple things to consider. Whether or not you want to see the whole plant in transparency is key. So for the most part, I put all of my foliage on translucent to some degree. Some will pop more than others. Some will make really translucent, like the grasses. But this is going to have some translucency too, but it's going to be very, you know, it's going to pop a little more. So I'll probably leave this at like 65%, something like that. Now, what I was saying about multiple bushes, right? You need to consider whether or not you want to take these layers and duplicate them and then move them. You can even skew them some more. And you can start to sort of build the landscape that way. Or let me turn that one off. And I'll duplicate this. I'll sort of move it over. Duplicate it again. Move that one over. So it becomes a little bit laborious to do this for all of the landscape. But the other thing I guess you need to consider is that each one needs to get a little bit smaller. So let me real quick just, that's the middle one. Free transform, I'll just squeeze that down a little bit. Alright, so these layers are, you can't really tell right now because they're almost all, I mean, they're 65% and they're really kind of like gritty images. They're not really on top of one another either. But if I put these behind one another, I mean, you can really see the difference between if they're all 65% or if they're all 100%, right? Like, the more you go down, the more you can see the layering of the elements. It's a little bit, this is a bad example, but you can see the layering of these elements together. So if you don't want to see them layered together, then you you have to merge them first, then make them translucent. So that's a key difference, I guess. But it's up to you to determine how you want to manage it. I tend to sort of let them tile when I'm doing the decoupage, rather than, you know, turning them all off and stuff. So that's an option. I don't like the way I did this one, so I'm gonna get, whoops, get rid of that guy and grab this middle one, duplicate it. I'm gonna put this one back here. Let's do it this way. Flip horizontal. Yeah, that feels a little better to me. Okay, so you can do stuff like that for bushes. Does that feel good to you? I mean, it's not a super detailed kind of thing, but it gets the idea across that there's bushes there without punching you in the face with the bushes. I mean, to me, that feels a lot more natural than that, right? So that's why we do transparency. It doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, even just like down to like 65%, 70% is enough. It pulls it back. It sort of desaturates it. It makes you feel like you can kind of see through. That's why I layer these up with like dirt and then grass and then bush, because you can kind of see through to the different layers of material that are there a little bit. Yeah. Okay, any questions on that before I move on to trees? No questions. All right, that means I explained it really well and you can all do it as soon as we stop.